views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
This show's audio was via a Skype call.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy Riddle and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy Riddle and Steve Kramer.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Spirit Fire Radio. My name is Steve Kramer, and I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. Good to be with you.
It's a delight, as always, and wonderful to continue our month-long conversation on mental energies. We talked last week about active intelligence, and in a way that was a continuation of a show we did a while back called Will, the energy of the will. These are all mental energies, and so the theme of April of this entire month is talking about mental energies and different qualities, different inherent qualities within that overreaching quality of the mind. So active intelligence was last week, and this week we're talking about concrete knowledge. And it is really this energy that stimulates invention. It's the science-y sort of energy, right? It's fact finder and creates order, allows us to understand the way things are put together. So, Dorothy, I know that you're very familiar with this energy of concrete knowledge. So I look forward to all of the knowledge that will be put forward today.
Well, Steve, I'm just going to share something with you as we get started. Last week, when we were talking about active intelligence, you said that the energy reminded you of jazz. You remember saying that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to say is that this week, concrete knowledge reminds me of Baroque polyphonic music, where it's very intricate, but it's orderly.
Baroque polyphonic.
Mm-hmm. Like fugues, Bach fugues, that kind of.
Ah, beautiful.
You have classical music is vertical, right? It's chordal. Polyphonic music is where you have independent voices that interweave, and their interweaving is what creates the harmony.
Ah, I see. So put together very specifically, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to utilize that fifth ray, as we say, energy, and I'm going to do some research on Baroque polyphonic as soon as this show's over. Because research is right up the alley of this concrete knowledge energy.
That's right. So I have a couple of quotes for us, again from Albert Einstein. The first one is, "What is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right." And the second one is, "The ultimate authority must always rest with the individual's own reason and critical analysis." And I think we don't talk about the ageless wisdom that much, Steve, but I just want to comment that that whole tradition, which is made up of the teachings that underlie all spiritual traditions, all religions, that one of the key tenets of that is that we must each decide for ourselves. And I think particularly in this day and age, as we're moving away from Pisces and into the Aquarian age, it's particularly important to understand that we don't just turn our life over to a teacher or a guru and whatever they say goes. We are intelligent beings. We're supposed to think things through ourselves. We're supposed to question. We're supposed to see whether the applications make sense. And that, to me, is a lot of what this Ray 5 or concrete knowledge energy is all about.
Well, and I would say, why should we do that? Because we have the capacity to do it. We were built to do that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
I really appreciate that as well. You know, within all of those teachings, the very first teaching of all of the teachings is don't believe a word I'm saying unless you've actually come to it as your own personal truth through investigation and contemplation, through pondering and application. And so, again, that idea of critical analysis and to discover your own truth, and then there is the authority. Beautiful, definitely an example of concrete knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So last week we were talking more about the abstract world of ideas, you know, and the active intelligence. And this week, to me, what we're talking about is the concrete application. It is, you know, what is it that we're actually going to do, not just what are the theoretical ideas.
Yes. Lay it out so we can see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know I laugh, and listeners, I've mentioned this to Dorothy before, but I will share it with you that I have been one to always be resistant of bullet points, and I don't know why. I think it's because your mind has to stay so organized, and I have a mind that wants to sort of is very circuitous and wants to move all over the place. If I'm ever taking notes, it's a piece of paper that has notes with arrows and circles and different colors and little drawings and everything's. By the end, it just looks like a Basquiat painting. But Dorothy has inspired me over the years to really work with bullet points, which is very organized and orderly with one idea following the next. And it has been quite helpful in being organized and organizing my thoughts, and those thoughts being very concrete. So I would say that the bullet point is very helpful in utilizing the concrete knowledge, and much gratitude to you for for making the bullets a part of my life. As I look at my notes, they're often in bullet points, and I see this that idea of order is so important with investigation and with the fifth ray. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Well, this whole energy of concrete knowledge, you know, it's very much the scientific energy of identifying a possibility, and then how do you test to see if that possibility is real, or identifying a dynamic that can be helpful, and then identifying how you would apply that dynamic, and how would you evaluate whether the application of that dynamic was useful or not. So it is very much about using the mind for analysis.
Yes, I mean, we live in a material world, so I think of scientists using what they have in front of them, but then that revealing truths that allows that to expand and expand and expand. It is certainly the proof seekers. You know, that can also be problematic, I think, right? We see that in people that are sort of overemphasize the materiality. They want to see it on paper. They want to see the proof, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we're wanting to do is to take that mental energy and use it in a focused way for the common good, right, as opposed to for individual self-interest.
Yeah. One thing you said on the last show last week was you were talking about thought forms, and you were talking about the fact that if we say something divisive or if we say something harmful, that it actually exists, that it is a form that is now present within the world. And so we need to take some responsibility, certainly for our thoughts, in that we're talking about mental energies. But I see this this mental quality of concrete knowledge as utilizing all that is here, of utilizing all of the thought forms and then building upon them. So it is this energy of as it says, of concretizing, so that we actually have it in front of us, and then seeing how it all works together to allow us then to reach a greater potential by seeing the truths and by understanding them. So really uncovering these unknowns and these mysteries. These are the people, and this is the energy that is actually making sense of all of this, and so that we can then move to a greater understanding.
I'd like to add to that, Steve, that we have this ability to analyze, and if you think about that, the thought form issue, anything that is in our mental cloud, so to speak, can and will precipitate into actual form. And that's why it's so important for us to analyze and say, is this really what we want to have be happening? Is this really the way we want to be with each other?
Yeah.
So we have, if we go back in history, for example, we had the ideology that black people were less than human, that they could be owned as slaves. That they didn't need to be treated with the dignity and respect that a human is entitled to. And as long as that thought form hovered above us, and it precipitated in concrete action, it was very easy to believe that that was a truth. Of course. And if you read the writings back in that time, people that we might otherwise, respect for other things, wrote things that we would now say is just outrageous. How could they possibly say that? And so that's why you can't just take the mental energy that's there. You have to analyze it and see if it is actually useful, if it is actually respectful, if it will produce something that is in the best interests of all parties.
Or that if, in fact, it is aligned with your own personal truth, if there is truth to it at all in any way.
Right.
And if the results, for instance, long-term actually are beneficial and short. So really this is an energy that has much to do with our evolution, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
It
and
does.
I think it's even got that time-space aspect in the sense that it is constantly lining up and building upon, what is here, how do we look at it, analyze it, and build upon it, and what do we deduct as a result of looking at all that we have created, or looking at the facts in front of us. So indeed, very, very important. Dorothy, we're already at our first break. Listeners, we'll be back, and we're going to continue our discussion on concrete knowledge after these words.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show, talk radio to thrive by. I am so thrilled to be talking to all of you. We have got talk radio for all of us. Are you ready and willing and able to accept all of the abundance you can muster up in your life? Check us out at drpatshow.com, transformationtalkradio.com, transformationradio.fm. Oh my goodness.
Do you know how powerful your thoughts and beliefs are in determining your experience of your life? Is it really true that simply by changing some of the words you use in your day-to-day language, that you can change your life? I'm Megan Edge. Join me on Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Talk Radio. I look forward to seeing you there.
To find out more about Megan Edge, visit her website at meganedge.ca.
Are you ready to branch out? Take a leap of faith. Then tune in to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills on TransformationTalkRadio.com every second and fourth Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific to equip, empower, and enlighten yourself. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. So, get fearlessly ready and get powerfully rooted in your yes to live it up, love it up, and let it go to ignite the life you deserve. Visit GetRootedRadio.com and tune in.
Stuck in a roundabout of dysfunction? Learn how to speak your truth to power with host Dr. Kathy Obear. Create real change with smart tools and smart strategies. No frills, no fluff, just life-changing conversations to help get you where you want to be. Extend your reach and become an agent for real change with Kathy Obear. For more information on Kathy and her work, please visit drkathyobear.com. That's drkathyobear.com.
Did you know that when working with the law of attraction, it's beneficial to share your longings with a supportive tribe who can assist in maintaining accountability and hold the creative space for your desires to manifest? I'm Autumn Seibel, host of Golden Otter Radio, where the metaphysical meets the mainstream. Join me each month at the new and full moon to plant your seeds of abundance, consciously tend to your intentions throughout the lunar phases, then harvest the fruits of your co-creation with the universe in my Lunar Manifestations members-only forum. Your tribe is waiting for you at goldenotter.us.
Are you ready to broadcast your brand ideal with the latest in information technology? Bioresonance software distills your brand ideal or intention and enhances your core internal organizing principle. This has a tremendous impact on your organization's alignment as well as the behavior, satisfaction, and the retention of its employees. Your physical business structure can unfurl, opening up the possibilities of creating an energetic presence for a brand even ahead of its launch. Check out JeanetteWolf.com for more on its signature frequency branding.
Welcome back, listeners. Dorothy and I always love to take a few minutes at the beginning of the show to talk about our organizations, the School for Esoteric Studies and Spirit Fire. We have come together in collaboration to create this radio program. Dorothy, a few words about the School for Esoteric Studies?
Yes, thanks. The School for Esoteric Studies is an educational nonprofit. We provide training to persons who have a spiritual practice that they want to deepen. And we also provide or organize a number of group initiatives that we feel can help advance the common good. One of these that we decided several years ago to launch was intentional collaboration with groups that were like-minded groups. And so we've reached out. We have a number of collaborations with groups around the world. We're really thrilled to be collaborating with Spirit Fire on Spirit Fire Radio. And if any of you who are listening belong to organizations who might want to collaborate with the School for Esoteric Studies, you can find out more about us and about that initiative at esotericstudies.net. We also, in relation to what we were just talking about before, Steve, we have a section of our website called Topics for Reflection, where we have some text and questions on issues that where people make assumptions that may not actually be that helpful or that accurate, and but these are widely held assumptions. And so these are things that we may want to re-examine. One small one is the whole issue of language, because within the esoteric community, there's some people are very attached to particular language that was written 100 years ago or 150 years ago, when the English language was much more highly gendered than it is right now. And so it raises some questions about how such language might actually be exclusive rather than inclusive. That's just one example. But we have a lot of interesting initiatives. Please look at our website, esotericstudies.net, and join us in any of those that you are particularly interested in.
Yes, take a full day off before you go to esotericstudies.net. There is so much really wonderful information and really wonderful, beautiful thoughts to ponder at that website. And I'm here on behalf of Spirit Fire. We are an educational nonprofit whose mission is to cultivate consciousness and to educate people on the importance of spirituality in their everyday lives. We primarily do that through our meditation practice called the Practice of Living Awareness. That is an online meditation practice. It is free, and we offer that year-round. You can have new guided meditations in your inbox weekly, and we have a meditation center in Western Massachusetts dedicated to that practice. We hold lots of retreats this summer, plenty of silent retreats coming up. All of these retreats supporting the practice of living awareness. We also hold wonderful yoga retreats. We do sound healing. You can find out more about all that's going on at our center at spiritfire.com. And we've got online programming. And once again, really wonderful online meditation practice that is constantly in motion. So you could check all of that out again at spiritfire.com. And we too just wonderfully pleased to be in collaboration with the School for Esoteric Studies. It's been a delight. So Dorothy, let's continue talking about concrete knowledge. I know for the last many shows, we've talked about ways in which we can misuse this energy. Oftentimes, it's really a wonderful way to understand an energy by looking at its negative side or its downside, the way it looks when it's actually being misused or contracted. So perhaps you want to lead off that discussion?
Sure. So, if we think about concrete knowledge as being the precipitation or concretization of ideas, of thoughts, there is a certain lack of flexibility that can come in that process, because you may have one particular perspective or one particular belief, and not be open to questioning or examining, and you may resist any kind of change in that. I think another, I don't know if this is a misuse, but I think it's relevant at this point in our discussion, Steve. I heard an online commentator talking a couple days ago about how we are in a period of great social change. There are a lot of ways that we have been doing things that are being questioned, and one of the challenges that we face is to not just be kind of one or the other, but to start to learn the nuances of the dynamic. And the particular dynamic that was being talked about was the Me Too movement, how it's so absolutely critical to support those who have been the targets of sexual harassment or inappropriate sexual behavior, to believe them and support them in seeking remedies, seeking solutions. But we also have to consider that sometimes we are provided with misinformation, and so how do we? That's to me what part of what this energy is about, is how do we test, how do we examine, how do we come to appropriate conclusions without being wedded to just a single approach.
So noticing the nuances. Yes. Well, I find that in what's necessary for that, and what I find that this energy can sometimes not allow is a sense of sympathy, or even more heart energy. If we are only looking at the facts, or only looking at something as this is the way it is, and that's it. This is the way it's been done. It works. It's tried and true. And that could just be from your perspective that it works, that we sometimes we're not able to allow those nuances in, or even it's kind of like the mind overruling the heart, whereas I feel like they have to work together. And so in bringing that back to concrete knowledge, we want to watch being too concrete, that even our ways, our behaviors, our actions, and the ways in which we see a situation, or see another individual, or see another gender, has become concretized. We don't have that breadth to see the subtleties or the nuances, or not. It's not even subtle at all. But we're not even considering another because we're locked in to our way of thinking or our way of being. So a lack of empathy, or a lack of sympathy, I think is one of the ways in which this energy gets sort of overrules, or does not allow other energies in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting to think of, how we protect ourselves, or how we ensure that doesn't happen. In the U.S. news, there's been a lot of talk about, criminal sentencing. And it's interesting to me that there are sentencing guidelines. If I understand correctly, it's not sentencing rules, that no matter whether there are mitigating circumstances, this is what has to happen. I think there are some of those, but those are ones that get questioned. Whereas, in other instances, there's a range, and there are a number of circumstances that a judge can take into account in determining what the actual sentence will be. So I think, part of what we're learning as a society is how to use concrete knowledge in a way that doesn't lock us in inappropriately.
Yeah, very well said. And I can see that it's almost a response in a way, as we talked last week about this energy of active intelligence that is very adaptable and sees, so many different ways of looking at. There are many different possibilities. And this is almost in a response to that. Everything gets concretized and ordered. And so we have to be mindful, to not go too extreme in that direction, and become overly inflexible, or overly set in our ways. We've got to still have some heart in there. I think it's this whole, it's always interesting to me that we pair love with wisdom, and we've gone at that topic at great length on past shows, but that wisdom is how we utilize this fact that we are all interconnected, and this difference between the intellect and wisdom. And so wisdom seems to be utilizing our intellect in a way that feels more organic and more expansive and more flexible. So we have to watch, I would think, by only using the intellect, by only looking at a fact. And sometimes facts are compiled in a way that doesn't necessarily represent the truth. And so we have to watch to situations where the intellect is actually presiding over wisdom. Both are necessary, but I think wisdom, it is what we're going for in the long run.
Well, I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective, Steve.
Dorothy, cut you just for a second. Can you hold that thought? And as soon as we come back from the break, let's pick up right where we left off.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. We'll be right back.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
Dream on, fly high, and live adventurously on The Laura Meeks Show. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as host Laura Meeks guides you in finding your unique gifts and bringing them to life. As a certified life coach, speaker, and veteran bomber pilot for the U.S. Air Force, Laura knows how to follow a dream. She is ready to support you so you can dream on, fly high, and live adventurously. For more information on Laura and her work, visit flyhighliving.com.
To find answers to life's questions, you need to look within yourself. Dr. Glenna Rice brings your questionable conversations on Transformation Talk Radio each month. Tune in each month for insight into how you can live up to your full potential. Dr. Glenna is a physical therapist, certified Access Consciousness, and Access Body Class facilitator. How does it get any better than this? For more information on Dr. Glenna Rice and her work, visit glennarice.com.
Living Lighter Radio with Jason and Patricia. We have an ecosystem approach to your life. Tune in weekly every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio as we, Jason and Patricia, discuss what's truly holding you back. We offer you the tools you need to reach your goals and at the same time be living lighter. For more information about Living Lighter, visit www.livinglighter.org.
Hello, listeners. Just before the break, Dorothy, you were about to continue the conversation we were having. Would you like to do so?
Yes. Well, it's interesting to me, Steve, that you keep relating it back to the heart, and I'm not saying that that's problematic, but I'd like to offer another perspective, which is if you look at the relationship between active intelligence and concrete knowledge, part of what is happening in the concrete knowledge energy is the insertion of focus. You know, if you think of concrete knowledge as being related to the scientific disciplines, it's impossible to test something if you've got 17 different hypotheses, not all of which line up with each other. You need to be more methodical than that to be able to determine, what is actually happening. And so I think of that as focus, that you're bringing the many possibilities down to a single focus. But what we need to keep in mind is that that's not the end of the process, right? So we get that single focus, and then we look at another element, and we bring that into focus, and then we look at another element, and we bring that into focus. And so we misuse this energy if we just do that once and we say, okay, this is it. I don't need to think about anything else. I'm not going to consider anything else. That's it.
Yes, so getting locked in. Beautiful. I love that. That was well received. Thank you. So how can we become more effective with this energy? How can we utilize this energy that is omnipresent, that we can tap into, that is available to all of us? I would love to know how I can become more effective with concrete knowledge. Any words of advice, Dorothy? Besides focus, although I'm told that constantly in my life. Focus.
Well, I think it's a matter of, part of it is taking any idea, any concept, and making it practical. I know if I think about both my professional life and also my life as a social activist, one of the roles that I can see that I, as someone who has a lot of this concrete knowledge energy, one of the things that I bring to that group process is I always want to know the practical implications. I don't want to just talk theory, right? I want to talk about, so how is this going to actually affect people in their everyday life? Is it going to have this outcome? Is it going to have this outcome? How can we change things so that the outcomes become more positive, so that the positive outcomes work for a wider group of people? But it's that discussion at the practical level that, to me, is part of this particular energy.
And I would also think then it keeps going, which is how do we record progress? How do we analyze the progress? How do we make this more efficient? I would think it's all a part of that streamlining effect of really efficiency and order, Yeah.
And if I could just give an example from my professional life that I think illustrates this. I worked at an interesting nexus or combination that very few people did in my experience as I was working in 86 countries. And that is that I worked on trade policy and I worked on trade exporting. So most people work in one area or the other. So the people that work in policy, it's very heady, right? And they have these ideas and these concepts, but they don't think about how it's going to affect that small firm that's going to actually try to export something. And the people who are working on the trade export side are just ground down into the practicalities of that, and they're not necessarily thinking about how a policy change could make their lives better. And so it was interesting to work in both, have a foot in both arenas and try to bring the policy concepts, try to inform them with what is that going to mean for the person who has to meet payroll every 2 weeks, and then talk to the people who were actually doing the exporting about why certain policies were in place, what other policies they could advocate for that would be helpful to them.
It's almost a foreshadowing of next week's show, which is on organization and synthesis. I'm hearing a bit of that as well. And so you can see how beautifully these energies of the mind unfold and work together to actually manifest something that is really worthwhile if it's used properly. This idea of initiation or will, and then active intelligence. How are these parts moving and working? And then how do we organize them? How do we get them actually ordered and study them, learn from them? And then how do they all work together to create an outcome? So beautiful. Like I'm hearing that the energy of the next show actually coming into that at all. And I think these build upon each other, and you can't help but that's actually a part of the process. That's actually the way in which these energies all work together, to create, to manifest and create and precipitate.
Right.
Beautiful.
Well, I think it's also important to recognize that part of what helps us be effective in using this energy is being able to detach from a certain type of emotional control. If we think about the emotional aspect of our being, we have a chemical system which is actually our first response. That kicks in before thought, before analysis. And the thing that we often overlook is that we can condition what that chemical response is. We are not held hostage to it. But in the general stream of things, there has been this belief or this focus primarily on negative emotions, anger, fear, these kinds of things, which then lead to particular types of activities or particular types of assumptions about what's possible. And if you look, for example, at the psychological literature, even now, I was researching this last night, just checking, there's still literature saying there are 7 main emotions. 5 of them are negative, 2 of them are positive, which is really out of balance. And while we've had a trend of what's called positive psychology going for a while, it still hasn't managed to kind of overcome or outweigh this incredible focus on the negative, on the assumption that fight or flight is the first response, that it's so hardwired that it controls us, and it controls our assumptions, and it controls our beliefs, and that's simply not the case. We're as you said, Steve, we are endowed with intelligence. We can think about things. We can reprogram ourselves if we so choose.
And so what I'm hearing is we're actually not using our concrete mind. We know as fact that energy follows thoughts, and that these negative emotions really ruling our lives. We could take a look at what are the thoughts that are generating these emotions, or what are the circumstances that we perhaps might be creating that are generating them, and that we actually can use the concrete mind and use the energy and all the what this energy has created in facts and knowledge to actually turn that around, right?
Absolutely.
And
this the concrete knowledge is the energy that can best help us do that.
Yes, and we need to rely on that. That's sort of the thing about accuracy and precision and fact, right? It allows for, it builds a foundation that you can rely on. There's a security to it because it's tried and true, right? And so you've got to utilize it. So it's a great asset, this energy. And I hear what you're saying is that perhaps we are underusing it, or in fact we are underusing it. If you look at the world today, Dorothy, we spent 7 months talking about the underlying principles of the universe, these energies that are basically law. And you think of so much harm being done, and so much divisiveness and criticism, and the ways in which we harm each other. And you think, we know the facts, they've been put out in front of us how to make this work, but we often ignore it. We just don't use it. And I hear you that a lot of times it's our emotions that are actually distorting the mind. And I'd say even people that are keeping us in a bit of a foggy mind state by keeping our emotions in the negative, keeping us scared, keeping us upset. And it doesn't allow us to think clearly and look at the thoughts and utilize this concrete knowledge that we have access to. Yeah. That's
right. And what makes it more complex is, you can think about the concrete knowledge as dotting your I's and crossing your T's. The challenge is that next month or next year, the I's are going to be different and the T's are going to be different.
Yeah.
And we have to have that flexibility, that openness to things changing. But the relationship between our initial chemical response and then how we're able to think things through, which then determines where our energy goes, it's much more under our control than we sometimes recognize or want to take responsibility for.
So put that concrete mind to use, right?
That's right.
Focus. Find the facts. Read the instructions. That's one thing that I'm often told. Steve, read the instructions first. Don't just get excited and start using it. Sit down and read the instructions. So, there's a lot to that. Right there you have this idea of taking your emotions out of the way. And, when you want to get the job done, sometimes you look at the facts, you look at what is truth, what is knowledge, what is concrete, and you start there and build. So, Dorothy, I really look forward to, in the next segment, we're going to talk once again about inclusive social action, because goodness, as we talk about neutralizing emotionality and we think of the ways we get really hyped up about, we sort of about social action, and it's so necessary that sometimes our emotions actually cannot serve us so well in those situations. And I would imagine that concrete knowledge could play a very important role in inclusive social action. So I look forward to that conversation when we get back. Hi, I'm Steve Kramer of Spirit Fire Radio, and I believe that meditation changes everything. It leads us in the direction of greater well-being, and that's a fact. I struggled with meditation for years. I understood the principles, but I found it hard to incorporate them into my everyday life. Spirit Fire's meditation practice changed that. It's called the Practice of Living Awareness, and it's taught in 14 steps. These are 14 tools that I can use in any moment, on and off the cushion. Steps like smile, flow, and ground of being support my clarity of mind while I'm navigating the ups and downs of modern life. That's why it's called the Practice of Living Awareness. If you'd like to add meditation to your daily experience, the Practice of Living Awareness is free, online, and it's suited for any level of practitioner. Visit spiritfire.com for more information. And be sure to check out Spirit Fire's meditation retreats in Western Massachusetts. It's all there at spiritfire.com.
Are you ready to shift your current beliefs about death, from debilitating pain and loss? Follow Angie Corbett-Kuiper as she shares that through choice, present moment awareness, and keeping an open mind that anything is possible, even in death. Tune in to Beyond Proof Radio with Angie, redefining death and loss, every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more, visit AngieCorbettKuiper.com.
You said forever. You said always. Now you know things have changed, and going back is not an option. It's sudden, devastating, and is like taking a leap of faith. Tune in to From Two to You, Thriving After Divorce Radio, as Sarah Lou's empowerment coach and spiritual mentor reminds you to have faith in yourself. Tune in every second Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific and listen as Sarah encourages you to leave negative stories in the past and move forward. We all need a friend when I do becomes I can't. Let Sarah help as life takes you in a new direction. Leave the guilt and doubt in the past, step into the spotlight, and show the world who you are. To find out more about Sarah Lou's, visit sarahloos.com.
Are you ready to embrace your essence and the magic of who you are? Let me, Emily Perkins, hold your hand and walk with you as we go treasure hunting for the gold that lies within you. Tune in to Love Living Radio every second and fourth Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit LoveLivingHolistics.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Dorothy and I are going to continue our conversation on concrete knowledge and the role that this energy can play in inclusive social action, something we need so badly in the world today. We see quite a bit of divisiveness, of dualism and dueling, actually, and harm being done that seems so unnecessary. And we've talked about inclusive social action on many of the shows of late. And Dorothy, before we look at concrete knowledge and its relationship, maybe just a quick sort of definition of inclusive social action, of that term.
Yes. So, listeners, the way that we're using this term is to refer to intentional action to stop specific violence or harm in a way that does not further divisiveness. Because if if one party pushes and the other party pushes back, you just get into a pushing match. One person says something harmful, the other person yells something harmful back, and it just escalates. So what we want to do is to not escalate, but rather approach this from a compassionate perspective that's grounded in an awareness that we are all part of the same energy field. And at the same time, an awareness that if we do nothing when harm is occurring, we are condoning it. We become complicit. And so it is critical that we actually speak out, that we actually do something. And I'm just going to include a quote, Steve, that we gave in another week from Edmund Burke, but just to remind our listeners, he wrote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing."
Yeah.
And so we're called to action. The issue is the motivation of that action, in other words, the affect, the emotion that we bring to it, and what we choose to do. And this particular energy can be very helpful to us in increasing, if we use it that way, increasing our awareness of the various forms of harm that are occurring. The very blatant killing is obvious, but there are more subtle, forms of harm, of which bullying is one form that's gotten more attention recently. But just that awareness of when harm is being done is part of the dynamic, or part of how we can use this energy.
Well, and I would think just presenting the facts. These are the facts. This is what is happening in the world today, and this is the effect. This is the result. In looking at it from not only the macro, but the personal as well. I think of all of the news stories that come up consistently, but just even recently with Joe Biden and this woman who is saying, he smelled my hair and it just felt uncomfortable. And many people around him were saying, "Oh, okay, well, this is just how he is. He's really physical, and he's okay." But the facts are, even taking emotionality out of it and saying the fact is, it crossed a boundary. I felt uncomfortable. Now, this isn't saying, perhaps it's not saying, okay, this man isn't fit to run for president. That might not be the case. But the case is that there is a case. And
That's right.
I think that the concrete knowledge aspect of this is it helps to neutralize the emotionality around it and allow someone to present the fact of my feeling. So it's not necessarily being in that feeling, but the fact is I felt weird, and I feel still to this day that it's inappropriate, and I'm not comfortable knowing that you may be on my team or in a room with me if you don't accept that behavior factually is inappropriate. So that's necessary within, especially the Me Too movement, is let's present the facts in a clear-headed way. I think that's
but it's also a recognition that there are certain facts that people have chosen to overlook for a long time. And one of those facts is that the treatment of personal space is gendered. If a man feels that someone approaches him too closely, he'll get angry, he'll react often. And that's understood by people around him. But the fact that women also have personal space, and they may have different sensitivities, they may have different boundaries, right, as to how far out that personal space extends. But the whole issue of being respectful of somebody's personal space is, what's at issue.
Yes. And as you were saying before, that we take this as for granted, or we take this as truth, that, for a man, I can do this, this, I don't actually need to respect or pay attention to or acknowledge that your boundaries may be different than mine, or that I I actually can respond and react and you can't. And so it's the concretizing of this way of being that we need to undo. And that can only be done by presenting the people's truths, their personal truths and their personal facts, of their experience and of human behavior.
Yeah. Well, I think another role that this concrete knowledge energy can play is in helping us discover creative solutions to situations where harm is being done. And I think of a incident. It was in the news maybe a month ago, where in a Texas school there was, I think it was a middle school, but I'm not sure. There was a young female, a girl, who was being bullied, and she was being laughed at, particularly because of the way her hair fell, the style of hair that she was wearing. And so in other circumstances, when bullying is going on, oftentimes schools will then have an assembly and they'll talk about the importance of not bullying and on and on. What this particular teacher decided to do was she had long hair that was below her shoulders. She had her hair cut in exactly the same style as that young girl. So all of a sudden, here's the authority figure in the classroom, right, looking exactly like the girl who's being teased and bullied. And it of course, generated lots of conversation, but it was really a kind of a wake-up call of, what? It's not okay what you're doing. I thought that was a very creative solution.
And she made it her own truth. This is here's the truth of this. She presented the truth of it.
That's right.
That I can see how it is related in a sense. That's beautiful. Right on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and this energy also is, because it is that scientific energy, it gives us the power to investigate, what different options might be, what root causes might be, so that when we take action, that it will be meaningful and it has a possibility of actually having a positive outcome. Well, but again, the big issue here is it has to be done from a compassionate space. It cannot be done from an angry or a vengeful space. Well,
and it has to have that foundation of truth. Mm-hmm. It has to have that foundation as well. Beautiful. Well, Dorothy, we're already at the end of our show. It's been wonderful, and I've been taking notes.
You didn't think you could enjoy concrete knowledge so much, did you, Steve?
I didn't think I could. It's been just beautiful. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm around concrete knowledge. So, listeners, we will be back next week, and we're going to talk about what would be called the seventh ray. And I love that number 7, and I'm sure we'll talk about it quite a bit. The number 7 is quite the auspicious number, and we're going to talk about the energy of organization and of synthesis, and it's going to be a really intriguing show, and it's going to sort of wrap up all of this discussion on mental energies and actually the way all 7 of them work together. So, Dorothy, I really look forward to that personally, and look forward to being with you. Listeners, I hope you'll join us. It's been a delight. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.